The bride collapsed onto the frost-covered bench, her wedding gown glittering with ice and something darker, tears that wouldn't stop falling. "Papa, Papa, look." 6-year-old Princess Arya Valtor slipped from her father's grasp and ran toward the trembling stranger, her silver furs trailing through the snow. Arya, no. But the child had already reached her, already knelt beside her, already seen her face.
"Papa."
The little voice cracked. "Papa, she's the one from my dreams. The lady who sings to me." Darius Valter's immortal blood turned colder than the winter night. If you're hearing this from the farthest tower of Valdorath to the humblest village hearth, stay with me until the very end. Subscribe now and comment where you're watching from so I can see how far this tale of stolen memories and forbidden love reaches. Now let me take you back to the winter when everything shattered, to a snow-swept square where a vampire king's buried past came breathing again. The December wind howled through the square of Valdorath like a living thing. Darius Valtor pulled his cloak tighter and watched the snow fall in sheets. The disturbance near the chapel had pulled him from the castle, some commotion about a runaway bride, but now he regretted bringing Arya out into the cold. "Papa, I'm freezing." "I know, little one." Darius crouched down and adjusted the silver furs around his daughter's small shoulders. "We'll return to the castle soon. The guards are handling it. Can we see the bride first? Is she pretty? That's not why we're here." The square held maybe a dozen souls. Late-night merchants closing their stalls. A pair of guards Darius had sent ahead, Rellon Drake and Morvis Hale, standing near the chapel doors. Old Silas Thorne leaning against a lamppost, his ancient eyes watching everything with the patience of centuries. Darius heard the hoofbeats before he saw the carriage. His own procession arrived through the swirling snow like shadows given form, steam rising from the horse's breath in great clouds. "She's here, Papa. Stay close to me." The carriage door opened. More guards stepped out first, then he saw her. Darius's hand tightened on Arya's shoulder so hard the child gasped. "Papa, you're hurting me." He couldn't answer, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but stare at the figure huddled on the frost-covered bench beneath the lamppost. She wore a wedding dress, white silk, or had been white once. Now it was torn at the hem, stained with mud and melted snow. Her dark hair hung wild around her face, tangled with frost. A pale bouquet of winter roses lay scattered at her feet like abandoned prayers. Her eyes. God and blood, he knew those eyes. "That ain't possible," Rellon muttered from somewhere behind him. The woman swayed on the bench. Her hands gripped the iron armrest so tight her knuckles went bone-white. She looked up, directly at Darius, and something cracked behind her gaze. Recognition. Terror. Confusion. Then her strength gave out entirely. Arya tore free before Darius could stop her. "No, Arya." But the child was already there, already kneeling in the snow beside the fallen woman, already brushing frost-tangled hair back from her face with small, mittened hands.
"Papa, she's crying."
"She's so cold." Darius forced his legs to move. Every step felt like walking through deep water. The guards had stopped what they were doing, staring at the scene unfolding before them. Even Silas Thorne had straightened, his expression shifting from boredom to sharp interest. "Step back, daughter." "But Papa, she needs help." "I said step back." He crouched down beside her. Up close, he could see the bruises on her wrists, purple and yellow, fresh and vicious. Could see the thin scar cutting across her cheekbone, still pink and healing. Could see the way her whole body trembled, not just from cold but from exhaustion, terror, something deeper. And he could see her face. 6 years. 6 years since he'd seen that face. 6 years since Liliana Rowan had vanished from his castle in flames and screams. 6 years since they'd told him she was dead, that his human consort had been killed in the tower fire, that her body was ash, that he needed to move on for the sake of the realm. 6 years since his heart had turned to ice.
Papa.
Arya's voice was small, frightened. Papa, why does she look like the painting? The one in the locked room? Hush now. But she does, Papa. She looks exactly like. I said hush. The sharpness in his voice made Arya flinch. Darius immediately felt the weight of it, but he couldn't deal with that now. Couldn't deal with any of this. Someone get Silas, he commanded, his voice cutting through the falling snow. The crowd just stared. Rellon finally moved, gesturing sharply to one of the younger guards. She needs warmth. This from a merchant woman, bundled in furs. She pushed through the onlookers and knelt beside Darius, pressing her weathered fingers to the woman's throat.
Pulse is weak.
She's half frozen. We need to get her inside. I don't want her inside anywhere. The merchant's eyes snapped to his face, shocked. Your Majesty. She stays here until Silas examines her. She'll die if she stays out here. Maybe that's what she deserves. The words came out before he could stop them. Hard words. Cruel words. The words of a man who'd spent 6 years believing he'd been abandoned, who'd raised a daughter alone, who'd sealed his heart in permafrost because anything else would destroy him.
Papa.
Arya was crying now, tears freezing on her small cheeks. Papa, you can't mean that. You can't. Darius looked at his daughter, at the fear and confusion in those eyes that looked so much like hers, and something inside him cracked. Fine. He bent down and gathered the woman in his arms. She weighed nothing, less than nothing, as if the years had hollowed her out from the inside. Her head lolled against his chest, and even unconscious, even broken, her scent hit him like a blade to the heart. Lilac. Winter roses. Home. But she's not staying at the castle, he growled. The merchant woman nodded quickly. I have an inn nearby, Your Majesty. Warm beds, clean rooms. He carried her through the snow, aware of every eye on him, aware of the whispers already starting like poison in the wind. By nightfall, the whole kingdom would know that a bride in white had collapsed in the square. By morning, everyone would have an opinion about who she was. By dawn, the rumors would reach the castle walls. And by the time the sun set again, Darius knew, with the cold certainty of the immortal, that his carefully ordered world was about to burn. The inn was warm, almost suffocating after the bitter cold outside. The merchant woman, Alara, she said her name was, led him to a small room on the second floor.
Clean.
Simple. A narrow bed, a washstand, a window overlooking the square. Put her there. Gently now, Your Majesty. Darius laid her down on the bed and stepped back fast, like she might burn him if he touched her too long. Arya tried to climb up beside her, but Darius caught her small hand. No, daughter. We're leaving. But Papa, she's hurt. Silas will take care of her.
But I want to stay.
I want to make sure she's okay.
Why?
The question came out sharper than he intended. Why do you care about some stranger? Arya's lower lip trembled. Her voice came out small, confused, breaking. She's not a stranger. She's the lady from my dreams. The one who sings the moonlight song. The one with the roses. Darius's throat closed. He thought the dreams were just dreams. Childish imagination. The way Arya sometimes woke up crying for a mother she'd never known. He'd never thought. That's different, he managed.
How?
He didn't have an answer. The door burst open. Silas Thorne swept in, his long coat dusted with snow, his expression shifting from irritation to shock the moment he saw the woman on the bed. Everyone out, Silas ordered, his voice suddenly hard. Except Alara. I'll need assistance. Darius grabbed Arya's hand and pulled her toward the door.
Wait.
Silas was staring at the woman's face now, his ancient eyes widening with something Darius hadn't seen in centuries. Genuine surprise. Darius, is this? Don't. But she's. I said don't. Darius's voice could have frozen the room colder than the storm outside. Tend to her injuries. That's all. I don't want to hear anything else. He left before Silas could respond, dragging Arya down the stairs and out into the snow. The cold hit him like a slap. Welcome after the suffocating warmth inside.
Papa, slow down.
My legs aren't as long as yours. Darius stopped, looked down at his daughter. I saw the confusion and hurt and fear all tangled together on that small, perfect face. He crouched down, ignoring the snow soaking through his cloak.
I'm sorry, little one.
I shouldn't have been harsh. Who is she, Papa? Really? The question deserved a real answer. Arya was old enough to understand some things, even if she was too young for the whole ugly truth. She's someone I knew a long time ago, before you were born. Did you love her? The directness of children. No dancing around the point. No polite deflection. Yeah. The words scraped out of his throat like broken glass. Yeah, I loved her. What happened? She left.
Why?
I don't know. It was the first honest answer he'd given. And as the snow fell harder, as the lamplight flickered in the square behind them, Darius realized with cold, creeping dread that he was about to find out, whether he wanted to or not. The journey back to Castle Valtor passed in silence, broken only by Arya's quiet sniffles and the crunch of boots on fresh snow. Darius kept his daughter's hand clasped tight on his own, his mind a storm he couldn't still. The castle rose before them like something carved from midnight itself. Dark spires pierced the sky, their peaks lost in swirling clouds. Eternal torches burned blue-white along the walls, casting everything in a cold fire. The courtyards lay glazed in ice so thick it looked like black glass, reflecting the moon in fractured pieces.
Home.
Prison.
Throne.
As they passed through the gates, Darius felt the weight of every stair. Servants pressed themselves against stone walls, heads bowed but eyes wide. Lesser vampires of the court whispered behind gloved hands, their voices carrying on the wind like poison. Did you see her? A human bride in the king's arms. After all these years, he brings another mortal.
Fool.
Twice a fool. Darius's jaw tightened. Let them whisper. Let them judge. He'd dealt with worse than court gossip. He'd survived losing her once. In his private chambers, Darius stood before the fireplace and watched flames that gave no warmth. Arya had finally fallen asleep in her room down the hall, exhausted from tears and confusion. Now, alone, he could let the carefully maintained mask slip. His hands trembled as he poured wine he wouldn't drink. Liliana. The name tasted like ash, like hope, like the cruelest lie the universe had ever whispered. 6 years ago, she vanished from this very castle. He remembered the night in fragments sharp enough to cut, flames roaring through the north tower, screams echoing off stone, the acrid smell of burning wards, and something darker underneath. Magic. Betrayal. He'd torn through the rubble himself, hands blistering despite his immortal flesh, searching for her body. For anything. All he'd found was Arya, barely a month old, crying in her cradle as smoke filled the nursery. The elders had pulled him away from the flames, insisting there was nothing left to save. She's gone, Your Majesty. The human consort is dead. You must think of the realm now. Of your daughter. Let her go. But he never had. Not really. The painting in the locked room. The nights he woke reaching for someone who wasn't there. The way his heart fractured every time Arya smiled, because she had her mother's smile. And how was that fair? How was any of it fair? You're mine, he whispered to the flames. You always were. Somewhere in the castle, a woman who looked like his lost queen lay sleeping. And Darius didn't know whether to pray she was real or pray she wasn't. Liliana woke to softness. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was. The last clear memory, the chapel, the vows she couldn't speak, running through snow, felt distant, dreamlike. Now she lay in a bed too warm, too comfortable, dressed in clothes she didn't recognize. Soft wool. Dark blue. not a wedding dress. The room around her was small but elegant. Stone walls hung with tapestries. A fireplace crackling with gentle heat. A window showing a courtyard glazed in ice beneath a pale moon. This wasn't the inn. You're awake. Liliana jerked upright, heart hammering. A small girl sat in a chair beside the bed, holding a tray with a steaming cup. Silver hair cascaded around her shoulders, and her eyes, bright as winter stars, watched Liliana with open curiosity. I brought you warm chocolate, the child said. With cinnamon the way Mama.
She stopped.
Bit her lip. The way I like it, she finished quietly. Liliana's throat closed.
Who are you?
Princess Arya Valtor. The girl smiled shyly. But you can call me Arya. Are you feeling better? I don't know. Liliana pressed a hand to her temple. Her head throbbed, and beneath the pain, something else stirred. Shadows of memory that scattered when she reached for them. Where am I?
Castle Valtor.
Papa brought you here after. Arya's expression grew troubled. After you fainted in the square. Don't you remember? Liliana closed her eyes. Flashes came in broken pieces, a bench, snow. A man's face silver-haired and ageless, a voice cutting through the cold. You're mine. You always were.
No.
That couldn't be right. That was a dream, wasn't it? Here. Arya pressed the warm cup into her hands.
Drink this.
It helps when I have bad dreams. Liliana sipped. The chocolate was sweet, rich, and perfect. For reasons she couldn't explain, tears pricked her eyes. Why are you crying? Arya asked, concerned. I don't know, Liliana whispered. I don't know anything anymore. Arya climbed onto the bed and sat cross-legged beside her, fearless in the way only children can be. I know you, she said simply. From my dreams. You sing to me. Songs about moonlight and roses. Her small hand found Liliana's. You're her. I know you are. Liliana wanted to protest, to say the child was mistaken. But something in Arya's touch sent warmth flooding through her chest, familiar, achingly right, like coming home after years lost in the dark. I don't understand, she breathed. It's okay. Arya squeezed her hand. Papa will figure it out. He's really smart. And Silas knows everything about magic. Magic? Before Arya could answer, the door opened. Liliana's breath caught. The man from the square stood in the doorway, tall, imposing, silver-haired, and ageless. Behind him, 3 others. A sharp-eyed guard with a scar. A silent, dark figure who watched everything. An older man with eyes like ancient winter. Arya, the silver-haired man said quietly, You shouldn't be here. But Papa...
Now.
The girl slipped from the bed reluctantly, casting Liliana a reassuring glance before disappearing into the hallway. Then Liliana was alone with 4 immortals, and the air in the room grew very, very cold. Your name, the man, Papa, Arya had called him, said without preamble. Liliana. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Liliana Rowan. Where are you from? I don't know. I don't remember anything before. She swallowed hard. Before Lord Fenric found me. Years ago. Near a burned tower. The silver-haired man's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes.
Pain. Rage. Both.
Lord Fenric Hale, the scarred guard said flatly. The noble who arranged your wedding. He said he was protecting me, Liliana whispered.
That I owed him my life.
That I had to marry him to repay. Lies, the man said, voice sharp as broken glass. All of it. The ancient one, Silas, stepped forward, studying her with eyes that saw too much.
May I?
He asked, extending a hand. Liliana nodded, not understanding. His fingers touched her forehead, cool and careful. Magic rippled through her, not painful, but wrong, like something scraping against her soul. Images flashed, a stone balcony overlooking moonlit gardens, blood-red moons, a man's cool hand in hers, a lullaby hummed over a cradle. Then agony. White-hot. Searing. Liliana gasped, pulling back. Enough, the silver-haired man snapped. Silas withdrew, his expression grave. There's a spell, woven through her blood, into her very memories. Powerful, deliberate. His gaze found the king's. Someone wanted her to forget.
Can you break it?
Not without risk. If I pushed too hard, her mind could shatter. Or he hesitated. Or the magic could fight back. Whatever power was used to bind her, it's still active. Silence fell like snow. The dark guard, Morvis, spoke quietly. She could be a spy. A trap. No, Liliana said fiercely. I'm not. I don't even know what's happening. Then, how did you know the lullaby? The silver-haired man demanded. How did you find the square? Why does my daughter recognize you? I don't know. Desperation clawed at her throat. I dream about things. Places I've never been. Songs I've never learned. And when I look at you, she stopped. Looked directly at him. When I look at you, I feel like I'm drowning. And like I'm finally breathing. Both at once. The man's jaw tightened. For a moment, his carefully controlled mask cracked, and she saw something beneath. Grief so deep it had no bottom. Get out, he said to the others. All of you. They left. Liliana and the Vampire King stood alone in the firelight. Darius, she whispered, the name rising unbidden. Your name is Darius. His eyes blazed crimson.
How do you know that?
I don't know. Her voice broke. I just know. That night, Liliana dreamed. The castle unfolded around her like a memory made solid. She walked through corridors she'd never seen, turned corners she shouldn't know existed. A great hall with a throne of black stone. A balcony overlooking snow-covered gardens. A nursery with silver stars painted on the ceiling. And a private chamber where a man stood alone before a fireplace, holding a faded painting of a woman who looked exactly like her. She woke gasping, tears on her cheeks, a name on her lips. Darius. When she opened her eyes, he stood in the doorway, watching, listening, believing, at last, what his heart had known all along. Welcome home, Liliana, he said quietly. Welcome back to the castle you never should have left. The council chamber was a place built for judgment. Vaulted ceilings disappeared into shadow. A long table of black oak dominated the center, surrounded by high-backed chairs where the oldest and most powerful vampires in Valderath sat in silent assessment. Darius took his seat at the head, his expression carved from ice. To his right, Elder Corvain, ancient as the mountains, his face a map of centuries. To his left, Lady Morgana, sharp-tongued and sharper-minded, her loyalty balanced precariously between tradition and pragmatism. Beyond them, lesser nobles and advisors filled the remaining seats, their eyes gleaming in the torchlight like predators scenting blood. Lord Fenric Hale's search party reached our borders at dawn, Rellon reported, standing at attention. 20 armed men. They're demanding the return of his bride. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. A human bride, Corvain said slowly, who fled her own wedding and collapsed in our territory. Curious. More than curious, Lady Morgana added, her gaze finding Darius. Dangerous. If Fenric claims she was stolen, if he accuses the crown of interference. He has no claim, Darius cut in, voice like steel. The woman came of her own will. She was not taken.
Was she not?
An oily voice from the far end, Lord Cassius, whose ambitions always outpaced his wisdom. Or perhaps she was lured. By magic. By personal interest. The implication hung in the air like poison. Darius's eyes flashed crimson. Careful, Cassius. I speak only what others think, Your Majesty. Cassius spread his hands in false innocence. A human consort weakened this throne once before. Some might say grief has clouded your judgment. Again, silence fell, heavy and dangerous. The king's judgment, Silas said quietly from his position by the wall, is not the subject of this council. The woman's presence is. And I can confirm she bears traces of powerful magic, memory-severing spells that suggest foul play, or evidence of her own dangerous nature, Corvain countered. Who is to say she is not a weapon aimed at the throne? Darius's jaw tightened. He wanted to rage, to demand they see what was plainly before them. That Liliana was no threat, that she was his, that she'd been stolen and broken and returned. But he was king before he was a man, and kings did not show weakness. I will investigate personally, he said, voice cold and final. Until I determine the truth, the woman remains under castle protection. This council is dismissed. The nobles filed out, their whispers following them like shadows. In the corridor outside, Rellon and Silas walked in tense silence until they were certain they were alone. She's real, Rellon said quietly. I saw her face. It's the queen.
Somehow.
I trust the magic, Silas replied, his ancient eyes troubled. And the magic says someone wanted her erased from existence. The question is who and why. Behind them, Morvis Hale lingered in the shadows, his expression unreadable. When Fenric's name had been spoken, his hand had gone to his sword hilt, unnervous till Rellon had noticed, but not yet understood. Blood ran deeper than loyalty. And sometimes, blood was the sharpest blade of all. This way, Liliana. Arya tugged her down another corridor, chattering happily about the castle's history, its hidden gardens, its endless halls. Liliana followed, half listening, half drowning in the strange familiarity of it all. She knew this place. Every turn Arya took, Liliana anticipated. When they passed a tapestry of silver wolves, she knew there would be a servant's passage behind it. When they climbed a spiral staircase, she knew it led to the eastern tower before Arya announced it.
How do you know that?
Arya asked, eyes wide. I don't know, Liliana whispered. I just do. They turned a corner and Liliana stopped. Ahead, a corridor ended in massive iron doors sealed with glowing runes. The air around it felt wrong, cold and heavy, like the weight of years pressing down. What's through there? Liliana asked. Arya's expression grew solemn. The forbidden wing. No one's allowed. It's been locked since before I was born. Liliana stepped closer, drawn by something she couldn't name. Her fingers reached toward the runes. I wouldn't.
She spun.
Rellon stood behind them, his scarred face unreadable.
Why?
Liliana demanded. What's in there? Rellon hesitated, then said quietly, it was the queen's wing. After the fire, the king sealed it. No one enters. No one speaks of it. He stopped, realizing what he'd implied. Liliana's heart hammered. The queen. Come, princess, Rellon said quickly, taking Arya's hand. Your father will want to know you're safe. But Liliana didn't move. She stared at the sealed doors, and somewhere deep in her fractured mind, she heard an echo, lullabies and laughter, the smell of winter roses, a man's voice whispering promises in the dark. I was here, she breathed. I lived here. No one answered. That evening, Darius found her in the library, staring at a map of Valdorath without seeing it. You know the castle, he said without preamble. Corridors. Passages. Rooms you've never entered.
Yes. How?
I don't know. Frustration cracked her voice. I don't know who I am, what I was, why any of this feels like drowning and breathing all at once. You want answers I don't have. Then let me give you one. Darius stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. 6 years ago, this castle had a queen. A human woman I loved more than immortality itself. She vanished in flames, and I was told she was dead. Liliana's breath caught. You think I'm her? I know you are. His voice dropped, raw and dangerous. Every instinct, Every cursed memory tells me you're Liliana Valtor, my lost queen, Aria's mother.
Mine.
But I don't remember. Then remember. He caught her hand, pressed it to his chest where his heart beat slow and cold. Remember this. Remember us. The touch ignited something, flashes of memory sharper than before. A wedding beneath blood-red moons. A child's first cry. His arms around her, whispering that she was safe, that she was loved, that nothing would take her from him. Then darkness. Screaming. Flames. Liliana wrenched away, gasping. I can't, she sobbed. It hurts too much. Darius let her go, but his eyes burned with something that might have been hope or heartbreak or both. Then we'll find another way, he promised. By nightfall, the rumors spread like wildfire through the court. The human bride bewitched the princess. The king has gone mad with grief. She's a spy, a trap, a curse. And in the dead of night, a raven arrived bearing Lord Fenric's seal. Darius read the letter alone in his chambers, his expression darkening with every word. Return my bride, or face the consequences.
She belongs to me by law and vow.
Defy me, and I will consider it an act of war. Darius burned the letter in the fireplace, watching the parchment curl and blacken. Down the hall, Aria's laughter rang out, pure and bright, followed by Liliana's softer voice, telling a story about moonlight and roses. Darius's hands clenched into fists. Let him come, he whispered to the flames. Let them all come. No one would take her from him again. Not Fenric, not the court, not fate itself. He would uncover the truth. And when he did, the kingdom would learn what happened when someone dared to steal from the vampire king. Silas found Darius in the war room, staring at maps he wasn't seeing. There's a way, the old vampire said, without preamble, to break through the spell.
Carefully.
Darius's head snapped up. How carefully? A blood ritual. Ancient magic, but tested. Silas moved closer, his expression grave. It requires 3 elements: her consent, your blood as the anchor to what she's forgotten, and the child, Arya, as the emotional tether.
No.
Darius's refusal was immediate. I won't risk Arya. The risk is minimal for the child. She'll only hold Liliana's hand, providing connection. Silas paused. But for Liliana herself, the spell may fight back. If it does, the pain could be significant. Define significance. It could kill her. Silence stretched between them like a blade. Then we don't do it, Darius said flatly. Then she'll never know who she is. And Fenric will keep coming. Silas's ancient eyes held no judgment, only truth. The choice must be hers, Darius. Not yours. Liliana stood by the window in her chamber, watching snow fall over the courtyard. When Darius entered, she didn't turn. Silas told me, she said quietly, about the ritual. It's too dangerous. For me, perhaps. She finally looked at him, her eyes clear and determined. But not knowing, living half alive in this fog, that's worse than any danger. You could die. I'm already dead. Her voice cracked. Whoever I was, she's been dead for 6 years. At least this way, I might come back. Darius crossed the room in 3 strides, stopping just short of touching her. And if the memories destroy you? If I lose you again? You never had me to lose. Pain flickered across her face. Not as I am now. But maybe if I remember. She reached for his hand, hesitant, and placed it over her heart. Maybe then I can be whole. He felt her pulse beneath his palm, fragile and fierce. One condition, she whispered. Whatever I remember, whatever truth comes, promise me you'll protect Arya. Even for me, if necessary. You would never hurt her. Promise me. I promise. The ritual chamber was deep in the castle's heart, where old magic still hummed in the stones. Candles formed a perfect circle on the floor, their flames burning blue-white. Silas had drawn symbols in ash and silver, runes of memory, binding truth. Arya sat cross-legged in the center, her small face serious. I'm not scared, Papa. I know, little one. Darius knelt beside Liliana, who trembled despite her resolve.
We can stop this.
Anytime.
No.
Liliana's jaw set. I need to know. Silas began the incantation, his voice resonating through the chamber like a bell tolling in the deep. The candle flames flickered, then blazed brighter. Your blood, Silas instructed. Darius drew a small blade across his palm. Dark blood welled, and he let 3 drops fall into a silver chalice Silas held. The blood hissed, turning the chalice's contents crimson.
Drink.
Liliana took the chalice with shaking hands and drank. Magic hit her like lightning. Vision, a great hall decked in moonflowers and silver. Darius standing before her in formal black, his eyes blazing with love and hunger both. Her hands in his. Vows spoken in a language that tasted like starlight. Vision a nursery. Pain and joy intertwined. A baby's first cry splitting the air. Darius holding the infant, tears on his face, tears and whispering, she's perfect. You're both perfect. Vision. Arya, barely a month old, sleeping in her cradle. Liliana humming the moonlight lullaby, feeling safe and whole and loved. Then, darkness. Vision. The door bursting open. Cloaked figures, faces hidden. Hands grabbing her, dragging her from the nursery. Arya crying. Darius's name screaming from her throat. A voice. Velvet soft. Cruel. The human is unfit. The throne cannot be weakened by mortal blood. Vision. Lord Fenric's face, younger, hungrier. Take her to the tower. Make sure she forgets everything. Vision, another figure, taller, giving orders with quiet authority. The stance familiar, too familiar, but the face obscured in shadow. The king must believe she chose to leave. Make him hate her memory. Vision, a vial pressed to her lips. Bitter liquid. Then nothing. Darkness. Years of nothing. Liliana's scream shattered the ritual. She collapsed, blood pouring from the scar on her cheek, as if the wound had never healed. Arya cried out, gripping her hand tighter. The candles exploded in showers of wax and flame. Enough. Darius roared, catching Liliana before she hit the floor. Silas, stop it. I'm trying. The spell is fighting back. The magic buckled, snapped, released. Silence felt like ash. Liliana lay gasping in Darius's arms, blood streaking her face, her eyes wide and wild with recognition. I remember, she sobbed. I remember everything. Mama? Arya crawled closer, tears streaming. Mama, please be okay. Arya. Liliana reached for her daughter with a trembling hand. My sweet girl. My Arya. The child threw herself into Liliana's arms, and they clung together, mother and daughter, separated by magic and lies, finally reunited by blood and truth. Darius watched them, his chest tight with emotion he'd thought long dead. Fenric took you, he said, voice raw. He stole you. Made me think you'd left. I would never leave you. Liliana looked up at him, eyes blazing through tears. Never. I loved you. I love you still. Who else? Darius demanded. You saw another figure. Who gave the orders? I don't know. The face was hidden, but she faltered. Someone close to you. Someone you trust. Outside the chamber, Morvis Hale stood in the shadows, listening. When Silas emerged moments later, Morvis stepped forward. What did she see? That's not your concern. I'm the king's guard. Everything is my concern. Morvis's hand rested on his sword. Did she name anyone? Silas studied him with ancient, knowing eyes. Worried, Morvis? Should I be? That depends on whose blood you value more, your brother's or your king's. Morvis's expression flickered, guilt, anger, something darker. before he turned and vanished into the corridor. Relon Drake emerged from an alcove, having heard everything. "I'll watch him," Relon murmured to Silas. "Watch everyone," Silas replied grimly. "Trust no one." By dawn, the reports arrived. Lord Fenric had rallied support from 3 border nobles, all of them vocal opponents of a human queen. Mercenary companies had been hired, supply lines established. An army was forming, small but growing. The kingdom teetered on the edge of war. In his chambers, Darius held the latest dispatch and felt the weight of crowns and choices pressing down. "Your Majesty." Relon entered without knocking. "Fenric demands a response. If you refuse to return her—" "I refuse," Darius said coldly. "Send a word. Liliana Valtor remains under crown protection. Anyone who challenges that challenges me." Down the hall, Arya's laughter rang out again, lighter now, joined by Liliana's voice. Darius's hands clenched the parchment until it tore. "Let him come," he whispered. "Let them all come." The storm was gathering, and this time, Darius would make sure everyone who'd stolen his queen paid in blood. Arya Valtor had learned to walk quietly through castle corridors. It was a skill princesses acquired when they wanted to hear things adults thought children shouldn't know. Tonight, she pressed herself against a cold stone outside the council chamber and listened to voices that spoke in whispers sharp as knives. The human woman is a liability. The king is compromised. For the realm's safety, she should be sent away. Arya's small hands clenched into fists. They were talking about Mama. Her mama, who sang lullabies that tasted like moonlight, who braided her hair with gentle fingers, who looked at her like she was the most precious thing in all the world. Why couldn't they see what Arya saw? Why were they afraid? She didn't understand adults. Not even Papa, who looked at Liliana with eyes that burned and broke all at once. That night, Arya dreamed again. But this time, the dreams were different, sharper. She saw things that hadn't happened yet, a portrait hidden behind iron doors, a music box that sang her song, Mama crying as soldiers approached through snow. When she woke, her pillowcase was damp with tears that weren't hers. "Tell me the story again," Arya whispered, nestled against Liliana's side in the window seat. "About the silver wolves and the winter princess." Liliana smiled, fingers gently working through Arya's hair in an intricate braid. "Once, in a kingdom of eternal snow, there lived a princess who could speak to wolves." As she spoke, something happened that neither quite understood. Liliana's fingers began to glow faintly, soft silver light that wrapped around Arya's hair like protection made visible. "Mama, you're glowing." Liliana stopped, startled. The light faded. I don't know how I did that." It felt warm, safe. Arya turned, eyes bright. "Like in my dreams. You used to do that when I was scared." "I did?" "Every night," Arya said with absolute certainty. "You make the silver light, and nothing bad could touch me." Liliana's eyes filled with tears. Somewhere in her recovered memories, fragments stirred. A nursery bathed in gentle light, her hands weaving protection spells she'd learned from Silas, promises whispered over a cradle. "I remember," she breathed. "Oh, Arya. I remember." They held each other as snow fell past the window, and for a moment, 6 stolen years didn't matter. Only this, mother and daughter, together again. Arya loved her father with the fierce certainty of childhood. Papa was strong and cold and eternal, but his eyes softened when he looked at her. His voice, which made nobles tremble, gentled when he told her goodnight. And now those same eyes softened for Mama too. Arya saw the way Papa watched Liliana when he thought no one noticed. Saw how his hands almost reached for her, then stopped, like he was afraid she might disappear if he touched her. It made Arya's chest ache in ways she didn't have words for. But that afternoon, pressed against the council chamber door again, she heard the words that shattered her world. For her own protection, the woman should be sent to the northern estate. Away from court, away from Fenric's reach. The king will never agree. Then we must convince him it's for the child's safety. If war comes. Arya ran before she heard more. She found Darius in his private study, surrounded by maps and reports he was ignoring.
Papa.
He looked up, and his expression immediately shifted. Little one, you should be sleeping. I heard them. Her voice trembled. The nobles. They want to send Mama away. Darius's jaw tightened. Arya, you can't let them. She rushed forward, tears already spilling. She just came back. I just got her back. Papa, please. It's not that simple. He crouched down, catching her small hands in his. I'm trying to keep you both safe. If Fenric attacks, if war comes, then we fight together. Arya's voice cracked. We're a family. Families stay together. I know, but promise me. She gripped his hands tighter. Promise me you won't send her away. Darius looked into his daughter's eyes so like Liliana's, and felt something inside him fracture. He was king.
He had a kingdom to protect.
Duties. Responsibilities. But he was also a father. And a man who'd lost everything once already. I can't promise that, he said quietly. Arya's face crumpled. She tore away from him and ran, her footsteps echoing down cold corridors. Darius stood alone in the study, hating himself more than he'd thought possible. I need your help, Arya whispered to Relon the next morning. Please. The scarred guard looked down at the princess, seeing determination that reminded him of her father. What kind of help? I need to prove Mama belongs here. That she's not just some stranger. Arya's small jaw set. The Queen's wing. We have to get inside. Princess, that wing is sealed by magic. I know how to open it. Arya said it with such certainty that Relon went still. I've seen it in my dreams. I know where to go. Against his better judgment, Relon found himself following the child through forbidden corridors. The iron doors loomed ahead, runes glowing faintly. Arya walked straight to them and pressed her small palm against the metal. The runes flared, then faded. The door swung open. How did you? I'm her daughter, Arya said simply. The magic knows. Inside, the Queen's wing lay preserved like a tomb. Dust motes danced in pale light filtering through shuttered windows. The furniture stood shrouded. Portraits hung veiled. Arya led them unerringly to a small room at the wing's heart, a nursery. Relon's breath caught. The cradle remained, carved with silver wolves. Baby clothes lay folded, impossibly preserved. And on a shelf, a music box wrought in silver and moonstone. But what stopped them both was the portrait above the mantel. Liliana, younger, radiant, holding an infant with silver hair and eyes bright as stars. That's me, Arya whispered. That's us. Relon stared at the undeniable proof, his mind reeling. Someone had sealed this entire wing, had hidden every trace that Liliana Valtor had ever existed. Someone had committed treason. We need to show Papa, Arya said, reaching for the music box. Behind them, in the corridor shadows, a cloaked figure watched, then slipped away, silent as death. Relon's instincts prickled. Princess, we need to leave.
Now.
That evening, Arya found Liliana in the library and pressed the music box into her hands. I brought you something. Liliana opened the delicate box. The melody spilled out, the lullaby, perfect and clear, the one she'd been humming without knowing why. Memory crashed through her like a wave. The nursery. Silver moonlight. Darius standing in the doorway, watching her sing to their daughter. His voice, soft and wondering. I never knew I could feel this much. Her own voice laughing. Darius Valtor, brought to his knees by a mortal woman and a baby. His smile, rare, precious. Happily. Liliana gasped, tears streaming. The music box tumbled from her hands. Darius, she sobbed, the name containing everything: love, loss, recognition, home. Darius Valtor. My husband. My king. She remembered it all now. Every moment. Every stolen year. And she knew, with cold certainty, exactly who had taken it from her. The figure in the shadows hadn't just been Fenric. The traitor was closer than any of them had imagined. Darius found Liliana in the Queen's wing, standing before the portrait of herself holding Arya. She didn't turn when he entered, but he felt the shift in her. The way she stood taller, more certain. More like the woman he'd lost. "I remember everything," she said quietly. His breath caught. Everything? The wedding. Arya's birth. The night they came. She finally turned, and her eyes blazed with fury and grief both. Fenric led them. Cloaked figures, 5, maybe 6. They dragged me from the nursery while our daughter screamed. Darius's hands clenched until his knuckles cracked. "Tell me everything." They said a human queen would weaken the throne. That mortal blood would corrupt the royal line. Her voice shook with rage. Fenric said he was acting for Valdoratha's future. They held me down, forced a potion down my throat, something that burned like fire and ice together. "Memory severance," Darius growled. "Dark magic. Forbidden." They took me to a tower, not ours, somewhere distant. Kept me locked there for months while the spell took hold. Tears streaked her face.
They told me you wanted me dead.
That if I returned, you'd kill me for abandoning Arya. That I was nothing, no one. Just a girl who dreamed above her station. Darius crossed to her in 3 strides, framing her face with hands that trembled.
Lies.
All of it lies. I know that now. She gripped his wrists. But they made me believe it. Made me forget I ever loved you. They told me you ran away. His voice cracked. That you couldn't bear immortality, couldn't love a monster like me. That you abandoned our daughter, without looking back. Understanding crashed through them both. The magnitude of the betrayal, the careful construction of lies designed to keep them apart. 6 years, Liliana sobbed. They stole 6 years from us. Never again. Darius pulled her close, and she came willingly, desperately. "I swear on everything I am, never again." They stood together in the dusty wing, holding the pieces of what they'd been, beginning to forge what they might become. Relon found Morvis in a hidden passage near the armory, speaking in urgent whispers to a hooded messenger. Going somewhere? Relon's sword was already drawn. Morvis spun, his hand flying to his weapon. The messenger bolted. "It's not what you think, isn't it?" Relon advanced slowly. "You've been nervous since Fenric's name surfaced. You questioned Silas about what Liliana saw. And now you're sending messages through secret channels." Morvis's expression flickered. Shame, anger, resignation. "He's my brother," he said finally. "Fenric is my blood." The words hung in the cold air like a death sentence. "You're the sleeper agent," Relon said flatly. "Planted in the Royal Guard." "How long?" 7 years. Morvis didn't try to deny it. "Since before the Queen. Before Liliana. Fenric convinced me the human consort was a threat. That we were protecting the realm. By kidnapping the Queen? By breaking the King's heart? I didn't know." Morvis's voice cracked. "Not until it was done. Fenric told me after, said it was necessary. That Darius would thank us eventually."
"And now?"
Morvis met his eyes, tormented. "Now I've watched Arya grow up without a mother. Watched Darius turn to ice. Watched the kingdom fracture." He lowered his sword. "Now I know my brother is a monster, and I've been his pawn. So, what were you doing just now?" "Warning him." Morvis's jaw tightened. "Telling him to stand down before Darius destroys him. Because brother or not, if war comes, I stand with my king." Relon studied him, searching for deception, finding only anguished truth. "You'll tell Darius everything," he said finally. "Tonight. And pray he shows mercy." The council chamber filled quickly. Every noble, every elder, every advisor crammed into the space when the king's summons came. The air crackled with tension and unspoken accusations. Darius stood at the head of the table, Liliana beside him in a gown of silver, the queen's color. The message was unmistakable. Beside them, Arya held her mother's hand. 6 years ago, Darius began, his voice cutting through the whispers. My queen was taken from this castle, stolen by conspirators who claimed to act for the realm's good. Tonight, she stands before you, memory restored, truth revealed. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Lord Fenric Hale led the abduction, Liliana said clearly. He and others used forbidden magic to sever my memories and imprison me. When I escaped, he arranged a forced marriage to bind me legally, to claim my blood connection to the throne. This is fantasy, Lord Cassius sputtered. The ravings of a confused woman. Then explain this. Darius gestured, and Relon entered carrying the portrait from the queen's wing. He placed it where all could see, Liliana, younger, radiant, holding infant Arya. Explain how the queen's wing was sealed by magic. How every trace of her existence was erased from record. How my daughter recognized her mother despite never consciously meeting her. Silence fell like a blade. Elder Corvain stood slowly. If this is true, if such treason occurred, it occurred. Morvis Hale stepped forward, his face ashen. I bear witness. My brother Fenric led the conspiracy. And his voice broke. I knew of it, though I did not act. I am complicit. I am guilty. The chamber exploded in chaos. Treason. The guard is compromised. The Hale family must answer. But Lady Morgana's voice cut through the noise. Even if true, Fenric claims legal right. The woman fled her wedding to him. By law. By law. Darius snarled. She was already queen. Already mine. Any claim Fenric makes is built on kidnapping and dark magic. I recognize no legal standing. And anyone who supports him supports treason against the crown. The nobles shifted, split. Some looked ashamed. Others are defiant. The realm cannot afford civil war, Corvain said carefully. Perhaps compromise. A raven burst through the window, wings black as midnight. It dropped a sealed letter before Darius and departed in a flurry of feathers. Darius broke the seal. Read. His expression turned to ice. What does it say? Liliana whispered. Fenric's ultimatum. Darius's voice could have frozen blood. Surrender you within 3 days and abdicate any claim you have to the throne, or he marches with his combined armies. He rallied 5 noble houses, 300 soldiers, enough to bleed the kingdom. The chamber held its breath. Darius crumpled the letter in his fist. Then he looked at Liliana, really looked at her, and saw everything they'd lost, everything they might still save. He turned to face the assembled court. Let me be absolutely clear, he said, his voice ringing with ancient power. Liliana Rowan Valtor is my queen. She is Arya's mother. She is under my protection, under crown protection. Anyone who threatens her threatens the throne itself. He drew his sword and drove it point first into the table. If Fenric Hale wants war, he'll have it. If any of you wish to join him, leave now. But know this, when I ride against him, I ride with the full might of Valdorath. And I will show no mercy to traitors. The blade quivered in the wood, its message unmistakable. Some nobles stood, fleeing the chamber in fear or anger. Most remained, bowing their heads in acceptance or resignation. And in the back, unseen, a shadowy figure slipped away to carry news to waiting enemies. War was no longer a threat. It was a promise written in blood and steel. Dawn broke cold over Castle Valtor. In the training yard, Darius moved through sword forms with lethal precision, his vampire warriors matching his rhythm, a dance of death perfected over centuries. Again, he commanded.
Faster.
Steel sang against steel. Snow kicked up in the clouds. The army of Valdorath prepared for war. On the eastern battlements, Liliana stood with Silas, learning to channel the magic that had awakened with her memories. Silver light coiled around her hands like a living thread. Focus on the bond between blood and ice, Silas instructed. Your mortality is not weakness. It's the bridge between their world and ours. Liliana thrust her hand forward. Ice spears erupted from the ground, jagged and deadly. Good, Silas murmured. But you'll need more than that when Fenric comes. I know.
Her jaw set.
I'm ready. Below, in the sanctum chambers deep within the castle's heart, Arya sat with a book she wasn't reading. Relon stood guard by the door, Morvis at the window. The tension between them was palpable. You should be with the king, Morvis said quietly. You don't trust me to protect her. No, Relon agreed. But Darius does. So, I'm watching you both. Arya looked up, her young face solemn. Will Mama be safe? Neither guard had an answer she wanted to hear. Morvis had ridden to the border at dawn and returned with news that curdled blood. 350 soldiers, he reported in the war room. Mercenaries, house troops, and deserters who think Fenric will win. Their 2 days, march out. Composition? Darius demanded. Heavy cavalry. Pike formations. And Morvis hesitated. Dark mages. 3 of them, at least. Fenric's been paying blood prices for forbidden magic. Darius's eyes flashed crimson. You're certain? I saw the ritual circles. Smelled the burned offerings. Morvis met his king's gaze steadily. My brother has gone mad with ambition. I intend to stop him, even if it means his death. Especially then. Morvis's voice was granite. He forfeited my loyalty when he hurt your family. I stand with Valderath now. Darius studied him, searching for deception, finding only grim determination. Then prove it on the field. They came at midday, when the sun hung pale and weak in a winter sky. Fenric's army appeared through the snow like a dark stain spreading across white canvas. Banners snapped in bitter wind, the Hale family crest, and others who'd thrown their lot with treason. War drums beat a rhythm that shook the earth. At the army's head rode Lord Fenric Hale himself, armor black as murder, his face twisted with righteous fury. Forward! His voice boomed. For the purity of Valderath. The army surged. Darius met them on the frozen plains with fury incarnate. His sword sang through the air, each strike felling 2, 3 men. Vampire warriors moved like shadows, impossibly fast, their supernatural strength crushing mortal resistance. But Fenric had prepared. Dark magic crackled across the battlefield. Blood spells ignited, drawn from vials of Liliana's stolen essence. The magic weakened vampires, slowed their healing, turned their greatest strength into vulnerability.
Now!
Fenric roared. The mercenaries pressed forward, emboldened. Then the sky itself answered. Silver light blazed from the castle battlements. Liliana stood with arms raised, power flowing through her in torrents. Ice erupted across the battlefield, not random, but surgical, precise. Enemy formations shattered. The ground beneath the cavalry cracked and heaved. Moonlight gathered in her palms and shot forward like spears, piercing dark mages' protective circles. Fenric's forces staggered, shocked. The queen, someone gasped. The human queen has magic. Impossible, Fenric snarled. But fear flickered in his eyes. The battle raged. Snow turned red. Steel screamed. The dead fell in heaps. Then the breach came. A battering ram, enchanted with Fenric's blood magic, shattered the lower eastern wall. Enemy soldiers poured like water through a broken dam. The wall. Relon's voice crackled through the communication crystals. There inside. Darius turned from the battlefield, torn. If he abandoned the fight, the army would collapse. If he didn't secure the castle, Arya.
Go!
Morvis shouted, driving his sword through an enemy soldier. I'll hold the line. Darius hesitated one heartbeat, then vanished in a blur of speed, racing for the breach. In the sanctum, Arya heard the fighting growing closer. Boots on stone. Shouting. steel ringing against steel. "Stay behind me," Rellon commanded, sword drawn. The door exploded inward. 5 soldiers rushed in, mercenaries paid in blood money, their eyes dead of mercy. Rellon met them with lethal efficiency, his blade a silver blur. Silas unleashed ancient magic that burned and shattered. But one soldier slipped through, heading straight for Arya. The princess screamed. Power erupted from her small body, raw, untrained, devastating. Silver light exploded outward like a shockwave. The soldier flew backward, crashing through the stone wall. The others staggered, blinded. Arya collapsed, gasping, terrified of what she'd done. On the battlements, Liliana felt it, the spike of fear through the bond she shared with her daughter. "Arya," she gasped. "Stay here," Silas commanded. "You're keeping the battlefield." But Liliana was already running, abandoning her post, magic forgotten. Nothing mattered but getting to Arya. Nothing. She tore through corridors, following the bond like a lifeline. The sanctum door hung in splinters. Bodies littered the floor. Rellon stood bloodied but alive, Silas beside him, and in the center, a terrified Arya surrounded by silver light. Mama, the last mercenary, wounded, desperate, lunged from the shadows with a dagger aimed at Arya's heart. Liliana threw herself between them. The blade found her side, punching deep. Pain exploded through her, but she didn't fall. Couldn't fall. Not when her daughter needed her. She caught the mercenary's wrist, and ice erupted from her touch, freezing him solid from the hand inward, stopping his heart. Then she collapsed, blood spreading across the stone. "Mama!" Arya's scream pierced the air. Outside, on the battlefield, Darius drove Fenric back step by step. His sword was a silver arc in the dying light, unstoppable, relentless. "It's over," Darius growled. "Surrender? Never." Fenric's lips twisted in a snarl. "I've sacrificed too much. Planned too long." From his cloak, he drew a crystal, pulsing red, filled with swirling darkness. Blood magic condensed into physical form. "Do you know what this is?" Fenric's voice rose, triumphant. "Your precious queen's blood. Her essence. Harvested over months of imprisonment. Enough to fuel a spell that will burn your entire kingdom to ash." "No." Fenric crushed the crystal in his fist. Magic detonated. The sky turned crimson. Blood-red lightning cracked across the heavens. Power rippled outward in waves that bent reality itself. Vampire warriors collapsed, weakened. The castle walls shuddered. And in the sanctum, Liliana's wound began bleeding faster, the magic feeding on her essence like a parasite. Fenric laughed, mad with power and victory. "Let's see your love survive this, Valtor." The spell ignited, and the world burned red. The crimson sky pulsed like a beating heart, and with each pulse, Darius felt his strength drain. Around him, vampire warriors stumbled, their immortal power leached away by Fenric's blood magic. Mortal soldiers surged forward, emboldened, their weapons suddenly deadly. Darius blocked a strike that would have been laughable minutes ago. Now it nearly drove him to his knees. Strategy, he reminded himself through gritted teeth. Centuries of experience. Use it. He moved differently now, conserving energy, using precision over power, directing his weakened forces into defensive formations. But they were losing ground. In the sanctum, Liliana clutched her bleeding side, her vision swimming. Arya knelt beside her, tears streaming. "Mama, please don't leave." "I won't." Liliana forced the words out. "Not again." Through her pain, she felt the crystal's magic, recognized it. Her own blood, weaponized. The spell was feeding on her essence, drawing power from the connection. "Arya." She gripped her daughter's small hand. "The magic, it's mine. My blood. That means we can stop it." Arya's eyes widened with understanding beyond her years. Together, Liliana nodded. She remembered fragments now. Silas teaching her counter-rituals, protection spells, ways to sever hostile magic. The knowledge rose unbidden, instinctual. Hold my hand. Don't let go no matter what. Mother and daughter joined hands. Silver light blazed between them. Not the violent explosion of battle magic, but something older. Pure. The light of blood calling to blood. Break, Liliana whispered. The magic surged outward, seeking the crystal's power across the distance. Finding it, wrapping around it like silver chains. Break, Arya echoed, her voice harmonizing with her mother's. The crimson sky flickered. On the battlefield, Fenric staggered as the spell buckled. No, impossible. The blood crystal in his shattered hand pulsed erratically. Cracks spiderwebbed across its surface. Darius felt strength flooding back. His warriors straightened, eyes blazing crimson again.
Now!
Darius roared. The vampire army surged forward with renewed fury. The tide turned in heartbeats. Fenric's forces broke, scattering like leaves before a storm. Darius cut through the chaos, heading straight for Fenric. They met in the center of the ruined snowfield, surrounded by the dying and the dead. It's over, Darius said flatly. Never. Fenric spat blood. I acted for Valderath. For purity. For strength. You acted for power. Darius's voice was ice. You dressed up ambition in righteous words, but it was always about control. A human queen weakens us. Fenric's eyes blazed with fanaticism. Mortal blood dilutes immortal legacy. I did what no one else had the courage to. You destroyed my family. You stole 6 years from my daughter. You tortured the woman I love. Darius's sword rose. That wasn't courage. That was cowardice dressed as conviction. I wasn't alone. Fenric screamed. Others agreed. Elders. Council members.
They.
Who? Before Fenric could answer, Morvis appeared, bloodied but alive, carrying a leather satchel taken from Fenric's command tent. Evidence, Morvis said grimly. Letters. Sealed orders. All bearing the mark of Elder Corvain. Darius went still. Corvain. He orchestrated everything, Morvis continued. Fenric was the weapon, but Corvain was the hand guiding it. The letters prove it, 6 years of conspiracy. All signed in his hand. Fenric laughed bitterly.
You see?
The rock goes deeper than you know. Kill me, and others will rise. The throne will never accept. The throne, Darius interrupted, voice sharp as breaking ice, accepts what I declare. And I declare this. Strength doesn't come from blood purity. It comes from choice. From love. From fighting for what matters. He stepped closer, sword steady. You chose hate. You chose fear. Now face the consequence. Fenric's eyes widened. With a desperate snarl, he lunged, not at Darius, but past him, toward the castle where Liliana lay wounded. If I can't have victory, I'll have vengeance. Darius moved faster than thought. His sword sang through the air, finding its mark between Fenric's ribs, piercing his heart. Fenric gasped, stumbled,
fell.
You won't survive this, he choked. The kingdom will tear itself apart. Then we'll rebuild it, Darius said quietly. Together. Fenric's eyes went dark. The snow drank his blood. In the throne room, Silas stood before the assembled court, Elder Corvain bound in silver chains at his feet. 6 years of treason, Silas declared, holding up scrolls that glowed with verification magic. Sealed orders to abduct the queen. Payment vouchers for dark mages. Instructions to fabricate evidence of her abandonment. All signed by Elder Corvain. The ancient vampire didn't deny it. His expression was cold, unrepentant. I acted for the realm's survival, he said simply. Human queens are temporary.
They die.
They weaken the line. I did what was necessary. You committed treason, Lady Morgana said sharply. Against your king. against the crown. The sentence is death, Relon stated.
No.
Darius's voice cut through the chamber. He stood in the doorway, covered in blood and snow and exhaustion. Exile, stripped of title, lands, and magic. Let him live with what he's done, mortal and powerless, until age takes him. Corvain's face twisted with horror, for an mortal existence was a fate worse than death. Take him, Darius ordered. Beyond our borders. Let him never return. Guards dragged the elder away, his protests fading into silence. Outside, the battlefield grew quiet. Surviving soldiers knelt in surrender or fled into the snow. The dead were counted. The wounded were carried inside. Victory, but at a terrible cost. Darius climbed the stairs to the sanctum, each step heavier than the last. When he reached the chamber, he found Liliana sitting up, pale but alive, bandaged and healing. Arya clung to her side, refusing to let go. It's over, he said. Liliana looked up, tears streaming.
Is it?
Fenric is dead. Corvain exiled. The conspiracy was broken. He crossed to them, kneeling before his family. It's over. Arya threw herself into his arms first, followed by Liliana. They held each other, vampire king, mortal queen, and their impossible daughter, soaked in blood and snow and relief. I thought I lost you, Darius whispered against Liliana's hair. Both of you. Never, Liliana promised. Not again. Never again. They stayed that way until the crimson sky faded to twilight, until the snow fell clean and white again, until the world remembered how to breathe. Outside, Valderath began to heal. Inside, a family did the same. 3 days after the battle, the castle began to breathe again. Liliana walked the moonlit gardens with Arya, her wound healing slowly but steadily. Snow fell in soft whispers, catching in their hair like scattered diamonds. Does it still hurt? Arya asked, concerned in her bright eyes. A little. Liliana smiled. But it's the good kind of hurt. The kind that reminds me I'm alive. And you're staying? Forever. Liliana squeezed her daughter's hand. I promise. Above them, the moon hung full and silver, casting shadows that no longer felt threatening. In the throne room, Darius convened his new council. Faces had changed. Loyalists replaced traitors. Reformers replaced the old guard. We rebuild, he announced. New laws. Transparent governance. No more shadow conspiracies. Morvis Hale stood at attention, his expression solemn. Your Majesty, I request assignment to the border forces. Under Commander Drake's supervision. I wish to earn back the trust one betrayed. Relon nodded. I'll watch him. And if he proves himself, he will, Darius said with finality. Blood doesn't determine loyalty. Choice does. Lady Morgana raised her head. And the Queen, Your Majesty? Will she be formally recognized? She will. Darius's eyes gleamed. Tomorrow. Before the entire realm. The ceremony was simple but profound. No elaborate pageantry, just truth. Liliana stood before the assembled court in silver and white, Arya at her side, Darius beside her. The crown of Valderath, delicate moonstone and silver, rested on her dark hair. I present Queen Liliana Valtor, Darius declared, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. Stolen from us through treachery, returned by courage and love. She is the heart of this kingdom, and its strength. The nobles rose as one, some with genuine joy, others with acceptance, all with respect. The people beyond the castle walls cheered. They'd heard the stories, the human queen whose magic had turned the tide, whose love had held the kingdom together. She was no longer a weakness. She was their salvation. That night, in a quiet chamber lit only by firelight, Darius and Liliana stood alone. We never finished our vows, he said softly. 6 years ago, the words were interrupted. Then let's finish them now. Liliana took his hands. Not for politics. Not for duty. Just for us. I vow, Darius began, to never let secrets stand between us. To trust you with my darkness and my light. I vow, Liliana answered, to choose you every day. To fight for us, even when the world says we're impossible. They sealed the promise with a kiss that tasted of snow and moonlight and second chances. In her chamber, Arya stood before a mirror, watching silver light dance around her fingertips. The magic came easier now, natural as breathing. Silas appeared in the doorway, his ancient eyes thoughtful. You're stronger than either of them, he observed. Human resilience and vampire power combined. Is that good? That's extraordinary. He smiled. You'll bridge two worlds, princess. Your magic already does what shouldn't be possible. Arya looked at her reflection, silver hair, bright eyes, power humming beneath her skin. Then I'll use it to protect them, she declared. Both of them. Always. Yet in his tower, Silas felt something else. Tremors in the old magic. The blood crystal's destruction had rippled through ancient wards, weakening barriers that had stood for millennia. Something distant stirred. Something that had been sleeping. Another storm comes, he whispered to the night. But not today. Today belonged to healing. Tomorrow's battles could wait. The family walked through the snow-covered square where everything had changed. The lamppost still stood. The bench still waited, now a symbol of reunion rather than despair. They sat together, Arya nestled between her parents, watching snow fall in the gentle night. Do you remember? Arya asked. When I pointed at you, Mama, and told Papa who you were. I remember, Liliana said softly. I don't have to point anymore. Arya smiled, radiant. Everyone knows exactly who you are now. Darius's arm wrapped around them both. My family, my heart, my kingdom. Under the calm moon, their hands joined, pale and warm against the snow. Vampire, human, and the impossible child between them. 3 souls who'd been shattered and made whole. A love that had defied death, magic, and time itself. The winter wind whispered through Valdorath, carrying their story to distant lands. A tale of loss and redemption. Of stolen memories and reclaimed hearts. Of a crying bride in the snow, a child's innocent recognition, and a frozen king who learned to feel again. And as the first stars emerged in the twilight sky, the Valtor family sat together in the square where destiny had found them and chose, once more, to begin again. Together. Always. Forever.
The end.
But in the shadows beyond the kingdom's borders, ancient eyes opened, and somewhere in the dark, a voice whispered, "The bridge has been built. Now, let us see if it holds."